So just jumping straight into it, let's talk about the startup ecosystem today. When we talk about the startup ecosystem today, what are the real opportunities founders should be paying attention to? And what are the less talked about challenges that are catching many off guard? I'd like to explore this from each of your professional lenses. So Kamaljeet, for you, from an AI and go-to-market perspective, what opportunities are genuinely transformative in today's ecosystem? And where are founders chasing hype instead of advantage?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to be here amongst all of you. I really enjoy the morning sessions and all the different talks. So I come from the California, where there's this mega energy of startups, founders, investors that are kind of changing the world with the AI innovation, and so much is happening with the use of AI. And go-to-market is kind of the theme across the startups that's needed for them to launch their products into the market and able to survive the different shifts that are happening. So with that, GTM is also going through a huge transformation in primarily three different areas. The first is AI is not just used as your productivity tool where you can ask a question, get an answer. Of course, it's used for that. But primarily, it's becoming your growth co-pilot where large volumes of data about your products, your competition, the industry benchmarks, otherwise, which was very hard to find, is kind of driving the change and the go-to-market strategies for the companies, the startups. The second shift is where the market funnel, instead of being very sequential and kind of sales-led motions, are changing and shifting from dynamic loop where you can iteratively build AI leverage into targeting your ICPs and customers and profiling them ahead of time and doing the outreach in a much more efficient way. So that has changed it into much more taking decisions as you progress and not waiting for 6 months to know whether your product is selling or the customers, you should pick a different customer or not. And third is the investor's outlook is kind of becoming more and more important, especially from a startup perspective, because most of the startups are looking for funding. So unless you know your investors' guidelines and frameworks and how they're going to evaluate your product, the funding is kind of very competitive play. So AI is definitely helping you to bake those North Star metrics and understand how the investors would review your product maturity, your AI maturity, and then get to the table in terms of achieving the funding. So the other part of the question where the founders are kind of chasing the hype is that AI cannot be the hammer, but it should be more like a Swiss knife in terms of picking up capabilities and what you need to solve for in terms of where you are in the journey, and then targeted outcomes and insights have to be created before you start putting AI layers on top of everything you do.
Thank you, Kamaljeet. Greg, from your experience, building biotech and life sciences companies in highly regulated and high-risk environments, where do you see founders underestimating the difficulty of execution, particularly when the roadmap is unclear and timelines are long?
I'm a serial biotech entrepreneur and venture capitalist, and how biotech usually starts is it almost exclusively starts in academia. Usually, it's a really good idea that comes from a really good scientist. We see it here all the time at Oxford and at Cambridge and places like Harvard as well. And often they don't really understand the pathway that we have to go through to get a drug approved around the world. And it's not uncommon that we'll meet a founder that says, I have this great benchtop experiment that's proven that this experiment works and my drug is good. I want to take it to market. that's really step one. And so I think part of the challenge in biotech becomes understanding when you don't know understanding when you don't know the answer that you're looking for, and it's time to bring the team in. And so there's a key inflection point when an idea incubates out of academia. That's the time that you have to bring in the right people. And a good CEO of a biotech realizes that they probably have very limited skill sets, and there's a variety and diversity of skill sets you need to be successful. You need someone that understands medicine really well. You need someone that understands regulatory, how to work with governments to get technologies approved. We have to have people that have experience working in animal studies and in human studies, and so there's a whole ecosystem that has to be built around this. And again, very often these wonderful ideas start in these great universities, but with people that just don't know how to move it forward, and they'll often go to investors and say, "We're ready," and the investors won't take them seriously, and so that's where you see a lot of stuff die at that kind of that critical kind of inflection point.
Perfect. Thank you. No, and I think it leads quite nicely on to you, Dr. Quilin, from a finance and governance standpoint. So, what hidden risks do you see founders overlooking in the ecosystem, particularly around funding readiness, compliance, or long-term sustainability?
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Vikas. So, when you talk about hidden risks, I really think that founders almost always overlook their capacity to, they always almost overlook. So, I think like they focus on the prices, they focus on the products, and then I think accountants should be forming part of that. So accountants should help them on that area, I think.
Perfect. Thank you. So that's the first question on startup ecosystem. We'll stay with you, Dr. Quilin. So the second area is around from idea to traction. So we're going to make this practical. So imagine a capable founder starting today. What should they focus on first to move from idea to traction within the startup ecosystem? And what should they avoid doing too early? So from your point of view, Dr. Quilin, what financial or reporting disciplines should founders implement earlier than they think, even before raising serious capital?
I think they should focus on the discipline of having this cash flow visibility. I think, that is very incredibly basic, but they think that this is actually just the rule of their accountants. So instead of believing that this is one of their core responsibilities. So if the founders have this idea that this is part of their core responsibilities, then it will be easy for them, because number is what actually helps them create sound management decisions. A number is more on give them positive objectivity or more objective perspective rather than pure optimism.
Thank you. Kamaljeet, to you. What's the smartest way for founders to approach go-to-market today, and especially with AI, without overbuilding or over-investing too early?
That's a great question, because as we are noticing this gold rush of AI again happening in California and worldwide, of course, there's definitely a mad rush of being able to use, adopt, and integrate AI into everything that a company is doing, and make it very agentic and autonomous and kind of automate everything. But what is important for especially these startups is to know which stage you are in terms of your maturity and what tools do you need. What are your priorities? Are you looking to first identify your customer? And have you done your product market fit analysis? Have you validated the idea? Because that is kind of a very different scale problem from a growth company that's trying to create more resilience of the product and scale rapidly and go from 1 to 10 or 10 to $100 million, right? So depending on what stage you are in the maturity roadmap, and that does require a very methodical diagnostic and human-led intervention. It's not AI-based. Of course, you can use some of the AI tool to do that. But the ability to understand the pain point, it's like, diagnostics by a doctor, by asking certain questions. If you have a headache, okay, then I'll give you Tylenol. If you have cancer, then I'll send you for surgery. So depending on what stage you are and what you need, then there is AI tool for everything. And of course, before you can dream of, there's already a tool that exists now in the market. So go to market has become even more competitive now. So with that, I think it's important to have your diagnostics right, know your current state, and then build AI on top of it. What I always say is don't try to be AI led, but try to be AI enabled, because that's what the investors are looking for, like how positioned you are to make the company sustain the rapid change that's happening with AI. So you don't have to prove it with complexity of AI to answer that question.
Thank you. To you, Greg. For founders working on complex science or technology driven ideas, what should they prioritize before chasing scale or visibility? And what premature moves most often damage credibility with investors, partners, or even regulators?
For sure, that's a great question. So I got to start where we were in the discussion around AI. I mean, first of all, you have to identify at the very beginning what is the unmet need that you're trying to address. Again, often in biotech, it starts science and it becomes it's a nice science project that lacks an application. And like any product, I mean, whether it's AI or biotech or consumer products, if you don't know your customer and you don't know what the unmet need is, that's really hard to be successful. So that's one. Two is, I think, being realistic is really important. Often, there's this kind of yin and yang of wanting to go fast, but also wanting to de-risk. And I've been accused as a CEO of going too fast and too slow at the same time, which is really confusing when you have a board member telling you you're going too fast and too slow. But the reality is in biotech, there are certain de-risking milestones that we have to go through. So we fundraise to those de-risking milestones, just like in other areas of the economy, and we prove that we're on the track. And I think really skilled operators can identify where those de-risking points are, fund around them properly, the right size of funding, you get to that inflection point and then fund on top of that. And so, again, being honest with ourselves around where we are. And then I think also being honest in the competitive set. I mean, so often founders get enamored with their technology. I think there was a speaker earlier that said earlier, don't fall in love with the technology, fall in love with the unmet need. That's the most sound advice I've heard in a long time, because if you do that, you're able to see where your competitors sit, and competition changes all the time. If you're not following that and being thoughtful in where you sit, you're gonna end up in a place you're not gonna like.
Perfect. Thank you. Final question, and this is a quick fire round, so I hope you're ready. Staying with you, Greg, what is one mistake you see too many startup founders make, and one thing you'd urge them to do in the next 30 days instead?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back a little bit to what I just said a second ago is founders, particularly scientific founders, will spin their wheels trying to raise money because they don't have a clear plan on what it will take to de-risk and how much capital you need to bring in de-risk. If you walk up to venture capitalists and say, I need $300 million and I've never proven anything, there's not a chance in the world they're going to give it to you. And so being thoughtful around how you can create value and where those inflection points are, and ensuring you have exactly the right amount of capital to get there, and a little bit of breathing room. That's where I think people make the mistake, and where I'd be thoughtful in the next 30 days is what is that inflection point? How do I prove it, and then actually deliver upon that?
Perfect. Kamaljeet, the same question to you.
So I think over pushing the use of AI in your processes or in your product, I think that needs to be curtailed and well thoughtfully carved out where it should fit. But also I would recommend that the startups that after validating their products and beyond they get bootstrapped, etc., I think they need to hire like GTM advisors or fractional leaders who are very proficient in kind of, they are the doctors of advising on this front, where they would come in, assess your frameworks and kind of guide you through the process of where the AI would be helpful and make it more outcome driven rather than just AI focused.
Perfect. And finally, to you, Dr. Quilin.
So I really believe that one of the mistakes that founders have or the startups have is the believing that the financial statements is the task of their accountants. rather than their core responsibilities. I think they need to make their numbers cold. I think they can use now AI. They have to like sit down and then at least have this cash flow visibility for the last quarter. So they sit down and then they need to have this painfully accurate financial statement because maybe before it was really hard to have that because founders think that because the investors they don't just buy the founders ideas, right? They are also very focused on if you can manage your capital. So the thing is, if you do not build this understanding of your financial statement with the help of AI or anything apart from uh, putting all the responsibility to your accountant, if you don't put it into your heart, and issue should be you are not just delaying funding. I believe that's the hidden risk that I'm really trying to say a while ago. The hidden risk that your funding may not become on time because the investors don't think that you know how to manage your capital. But it is not just about funding problem, I believe. It is also about you actively destroying your credibility to the stakeholders who help you along the way. You need to survive, right? So these are the stakeholders that you need to survive, and then you are actively destroying your credibility with them if your financial statement is a maze of commingled funds or undocumented expenses. So you have to take that responsibility, not just to your financial people, but of course in your heart that this is where the money is going. So even with AI, because AI give you answers differently. Depends on what perspective, depends on the questions that you ask in the AI, then AI give you different answers. So you need to understand that from the core so that you can have the right answers also.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone on the panel. Thank you.